I think it's a fine line, whether you're playing in an empty stadium or whether you're playing in a full one and using hand signals. It's the same thing, so it is something that's always on our minds and something we got to be concerned with. But we got to, we can't get paranoid in our approach week in and week out. We got to go out there and cut it loose and play.
That's Vikings offensive coordinator Gary Kubiak talking about being paranoid. Courtney Cronin from ESPN.com, Mackey and Judd with Declan producing here. It is Purple Daily. And before we get into confidence, curiosity, and concern for this game against the Colts, what was the context of that soundbite, Courtney? What was Gary Kubiak talking about play calling in an empty stadium?
Yeah, so I asked him because I was curious from just like my own perspective of watching games. And yeah, you can't truly hear every little intricacy of the play call that the offense is, the quarterback screaming out. But I was wondering from a competitive advantage standpoint, will you now have to change the verbiage of these play calls on a week-to-week basis? So if you had a play that was, these West Coast play calls are so intricate and they're like 9 letters long or 9 words long. It's just, it's something, it's always insane. I'm like, how the hell do you remember all that? But I was like, okay, well, if a team, because clearly you have an advanced scout who is going back and parsing through film and you have people who, are scouting for your next opponent. What if the play call from like week 1, what if they knew what the play was and they were able to, like, if they kept seeing it repeat itself and show up in places, like, would you have to change your verbiage so it doesn't get on tape, essentially? It's not recorded by the broadcast because you think, all right, it's quieter. You should be able to hear it. That should give the defense an advantage. And that's what Gary was saying. It's like, obviously they change things, I think, pretty routinely, but, you can't get paranoid and thinking, okay, well, they know our play call. We have to alter everything that we're doing, and then you end up getting in a game of chasing your tail. So I think that nobody knows what this thing is going to be like this year. Like, how is this whole season going to play out, just given the ancillary stuff around you, like that's affecting the actual quality of the game. Rodgers hard counting and quick counting a team on the road. Like, that doesn't happen because usually it's really effing loud in there on third down.
Second play of the game, Rodgers does a hard count and gets the Vikings to jump. That must have been a reality check.
Yeah, absolutely. It's that type of stuff that it's the game within the game. And that's what I love about it. And I look at this thing wondering for offenses, if you have the same play that you routinely use, are you calling it something different week to week so teams aren't picking up on that, like when they're, scouting? Sure. I'm sure that that's something that they will have to do. I know that Gary said you want to get paranoid. You don't want to be, worried about that, but it's the game within the game, and it's another added layer of something that we've got to parse through here in 2020 as we figure out how teams are going to use certain things as a competitive advantage.
So among events throughout sports, NBA, baseball, football, Courtney, that you have covered, where does just last Sunday, forget the game, the result itself, where does that experience of sitting in an empty football stadium and watching the Packers and Vikings play what to me felt like a Saturday morning youth soccer game rank for you?
That's probably a great way to describe it. I felt like I was in a shopping mall, and that ambient noise, at Mall of America, it's 2 levels, and it's kind of like you can hear, if you if you lean over the railing, or if you lean closer to the railing, you're going to hear the noise that's down below. If you're just walking around the concourse, what's below is going to sound like this kind of constant hum. You won't be able to actually discern what it is until you actually listen into it. So that's what it felt like to me. I usually have, and everybody's rusty. I think week 1, the play is going to be rusty. We as writers are going to be rusty because it's we didn't have preseason. I have kind of this mental checklist of things that I look for on sidelines, and I have my binoculars, and I'm constantly locked into the game. And it's kind of hard to do that when you don't have the cues of, okay, they're playing this song, it must mean it's time to go into the third quarter. They're, it's a TV timeout. Obviously, TV timeouts not as obvious as they were in previous years because you don't have some sort of promotion from the game day crew coming out onto the Jumbotron. They're not, doing the interview that they typically do with whatever Viking legend that they bring in the second quarter type stuff. So it was weird. That ambient noise, I don't think it ever got above a quiet hum which I wonder if it would have been louder had we been in the lower bowl area of the stadium. Like in the press box, it just very much felt to me like what you're watching on TV was not an accurate representation of what was going on in the stadium, at least not by the Fox broadcast crew. Because I came home and I watched the second half of the Saints-Bucks game, and I texted a friend of mine who's on the beat there. I was like, how loud is it in there? And she's like, not at all. I'm like, well, TV would make you think it is. And so that's my biggest gripe with the NFL. I'm like, let them pump in crowd noise like at normal decibels, not like this like muted version of it. Like they can't have fans. I'm not saying you need to be like, in a fishbowl where it's just like screaming volume all the time, but it should be louder than it was, because it's hard to stay locked in, I think, because you could quickly lull yourself to sleep watching a game like that, especially as bad as it was. But you don't have the general hypeness to keep you locked in. And that's just everything from what the press box looks and feels like on game day to, what the crowd sounds like. I mean, I know that people always say, and even I've gotten into this, that, fans are kind of like the extra part. It's like, you're not really that big of a deal. Yes, they are, especially in football. Like that to me was a humbling moment for myself, who, I always get irritated when people do fan stories, because I'm like, come on, like write something football related. But the fans matter. And that stuff, like for players who, sometimes coaches get pissed about that, and they'll be like, we have the greatest fans in the world, but they don't really want to talk about like the effect fans have. Like, it's like, it's us in between the lines. We are what matters. Well, the fans have a big impact on the play of the game and momentum swings and things like that. And I mean, especially in the NBA, I think with, when you go on runs and things like that, but even last week when the safety happens and the Vikings then, Kirk gets sacked on the next drive and they go 3 and out, like you wonder kind of what it would be like to have, I mean, it was quiet to a degree, but like, what would that have environment been like had you had fans there? And even when, especially when the Packers are on offense, I mean, that's what makes the Vikings defense so good at home. Obviously they have great players, but the fact is that they have one of the loudest environments in that stadium that, certainly helps the communication become a real problem for the quarterback, and you're not getting hard counted on the road. It's crazy to think about.
Yeah,
like
a free play that goes for a 45-yard pass too in your own stadium. And that actually, I mean, you would see sometimes like Everson Griffin trying to time a snap at home, and so it does happen.
Jump offside, sure, yeah.
Yeah, but the hard count on the second play was eye-opening. So let's do this. Let's go around the room. We'll start with what we're most confident in when it comes to the Vikings and the Colts. We'll go Judd, Courtney, Declan, back to me, and we'll start with confidences. Judd Zolga, what are you most confident in on behalf of the Vikings this weekend?
This one's difficult after last week. I mean, my goodness, I had to give this a lot of thought. And then it hit me. It hit me like a bolt of lightning.
Are you going to do a backhanded thing where like you're confident the Vikings defense is going to be garbage again against the Colts?
I'm confident in one player who's going to be on the field at Lucas Oil Stadium Sunday. That's Xavier Rhodes.
Wow.
The former Viking is playing for the Colts.
Advantage Vikings.
Exactly right. I mean, I don't know if it's Thielen, if it's Jefferson. I don't care who. I believe that Rhodes gave up at least one touchdown against Jacksonville in week 1. He is primed to give up at least one more. I mean, unfortunately, he was once great. He is now cooked. He continues to try to play the style that he used to play that was so successful and got him to Pro Bowls. I'm confident Xavier Rhodes is going to be playing for the opponent this time.
Wow. It's not a bad one. It's not a bad one. And it's funny because like when he was playing for the Vikings, it's tough because our lasting image of one of the greatest Vikings cornerbacks of all time is just like a punchline. It's, it was just 1 year too much.
It's that shrugging about. Where'd the guy go? What happened? Harrison.
If he had played like he did last year in a Colts uniform instead, we could at least sit here and say, well, at least they didn't hang on to him 1 year too long, but it sort of taints your memory of him. All right, Courtney, what are you most confident in on behalf of the Vikings?
Well, I'm confident that they're going to have more than 18 minutes and 44 seconds on the field as an offense, because I'm willing. I know that, the offense was rough, and even Gary Kubiak had mentioned how, got ugly out there. But I'm willing to give the offense a little bit of a mulligan, not a full one, maybe half of a mulligan, because we saw things with Kirk Cousins and trends that have just been showing up since 2018, like trusting pre-snap read more than your Pro Bowl receiver that he's going to get open. I don't know if that stuff's ever going to change, to be quite honest with you, but I will give them the benefit of the doubt that they will have a better time of possession this time around, because think about it. Like, that's a weird environment for anybody to be playing in. And like your defense going up against Aaron Rodgers, like it was a perfect storm for a giant cluster for this defense to really be playing from behind and struggling the whole time. So this team's like 8-0 last year if they have a time of possession 30 minutes or more. So as long as that can continue and they will be able to have more of like a, better discrepancy between the snap count or the number of snaps teams are playing, 72 versus like 48 or something for the offense. That was a lot. I'm confident that the offense will not look as bad as they did last week. We'll finally be able to judge how good or bad this offense is after this week.
Declan Goff.
Yeah, I had a similar one to Judd and it was like Xavier, but I'll tweak it just a little bit. Last week, Gardner Minshew lit up the Colts defense. I mean, he was damn near perfect from a passer rating standpoint. So last week with the offense not really getting into tempo, I think the passing game opens up a ton this time. I'm not sure if Kirk's going to throw out for 400 yards, but I do think Kirk Cousins in the passing game is able to find some rhythm and get some stability. So I'm confident that the passing game opens back up against the Colts.
All right. So I'm also kind of taking the Judd Zulgad path here in terms of the thing I'm most confident
The lazy
in.
path of, hey, that guy's bad.
So he is my guy, Phillip Rivers.
Oh, no. Oh, boy.
But he has thrown 22 interceptions in 17 games over the last year and change. And his teams are 5-12 in those games. He's just a turnover machine. So even though I will go to my grave defending Phillip Rivers' career and Tony Romo's career as being highly underrated, I think the Vikings defense gets better because Phillip Rivers hand delivers at least 2 turnovers sometime in this game on Sunday. What was it? 5? Was it 5 turnovers in that game last year? Something like that?
In the Vikings Chargers game?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was absurd. I mean, he had 2 picks last week, and he just throws these wild interceptions that you're just like, what were you seeing out there? Like, because he has time. Like, he has a lot of time, but I mean, that's also kind of my biggest concern for the week too.
The clock is ticking.
He has a lot of time to find which defender he wants to throw the ball to 18 yards down the field. All right, the thing that you are the most concerned about, Judd Zulgad.
Oh, my biggest concern. How about this? Everything after last week. Like, I mean, where do I start? Where do I stop? I don't know. I'm going to say, if I have to pick one, the cornerbacks. So Cam Dantzler, the 3rd-round pick, played more snaps than any other corner last Sunday, and he had yet to practice through Thursday with a rib injury, which leads me to believe he's not going to play. Okay, so Jeff Gladney's going to play more, but Jeff Gladney, who we know has a suspect knee, and he should have been on the injury report last week, but he's there now, played, I think, Courtney, 9 defensive snaps on Sunday?
Yeah, I didn't see any of them.
I didn't either.
I was on another planet, apparently, because
I missed them all, too.
Played on anything but special teams.
I think they all came during what we like to call garbage time when we were probably looking at our computers and writing. But this cornerback thing's just going to take time. Like, I don't know how you just magically wave a wand if you're Zimmer and fix it. So it's a legitimate concern, and it's probably a consistent concern for me through about the first, 5 or 6 games. Because, I mean, this is just going to be a gradual process. There's no magic veteran here coming to save the day. It's the Vikings' choice, but it's definitely has to be a concern of some sort.
Yeah, Courtney, what about you? What are you most concerned about?
Well, it all goes hand in hand. I'm with Judd. It's like everything would be a great answer, but where does it start? Well, they pressured Rodgers 7 times on 44 dropbacks. Like, my biggest concern is how can this team stay afloat without Danielle Hunter? They've got to figure it out because they've got 2 more games at minimum without him. And I think when you hear I don't know if I call it an excuse, but you hear the reasoning from coaches that they couldn't get pressure on Rodgers because he got the ball out in 2.25 seconds. Well, Rodgers is not the only one who throws it fast and has a really quick release. Phillip Rivers averaged 2.27 seconds last week getting the ball out. So that's a serious problem too. And I'm like, okay, well, if you say that you can't pressure the guy at all, if he's getting the ball out that quickly, just give up. What's the alternative? Okay, we'll cover back and can pull the ball down. But if you can't do that because your corners are not up to speed and it's really tough to stay with your guy and you have a great offensive line you're going against. I mean, it's the domino effect that concerns me for this defense, that it could very quickly start to look like last week, considering I think the Colts have the best offensive line in the NFL, better than the Packers even. And Phillip Rivers has all the time in the world to throw back there, but he's getting rid of the ball really quickly. So if you couldn't pressure him in that same manner last week, what's to say that you're going to be able to somehow fix it this week? I don't know.
Yeah, my concern is just too on the defensive line, be able to getting after Phillip Rivers. That Colts offensive line is very good, even with Phillip Rivers being a turnover machine now and being kind of a skeleton of who he used to be. Sorry, Phil. But I think with Danielle Hunter's absence, unless they're going to get really creative, which we've always been asking for Anthony Barr to start pressuring the quarterback, or I don't know if they're going to do safety blitzes and getting Harrison Smith to get after him. Like, they're going to have to get extremely creative if they're going to have to replace Danielle Hunter, because you just can't physically swap someone in and replace him. So just the creativity and getting after Rivers, I have a lot of concerns with.
Yeah. And I'm honestly, like, I'm not going to change my answer. I'm just going to echo, and I can't remember if Courtney brought this stat to the table here, but the Vikings, so we watched that game, Judd and I and Declan, and thought, I mean, they blitzed a few times, right? But like, Mike Zimmer's got to dial up some more things. And then the number came in, and it was like the Vikings sent extra pressure on almost half of the snaps, half of the dropbacks. And it was like, whoa, okay, so you sent extra pressure almost half the time and still
get any extra pressure.
Still only had the 7 pressures. So
and Barr blitzed.
So
and Kendricks did too. Like, I mean, that's the thing. Like, Mike Zimmer's a guy who wants to win with 4. Typically, he wants to win with his pass rush, but he sent extra pressure in this past week. I think they had the 11th highest blitz rate, just over 38% last week. And that's, you can do it with your double A gap stuff. You can get creative and, have Harrison Smith up there ready to blitz. You could bring some corner blitzes in, but you're not really up to speed with your corners, so probably not. But I also think that that's going to expose you on the back end. If you have a quarterback who just, if you have fast receivers, if you have a quarterback who's able to get a deep shot off right away and you're just wide open on the back end, it's game over. So, I mean, that's my concern. Like, some people think, okay, just blitz, send extra pressure all the time. Well, you can't, because when you're overcompensating for something else, leaving yourself exposed elsewhere, and that's a problem.
Against my guy Phillip Rivers, it's very likely that you can be safe sending 10. You can pretty much send 10 and keep Harrison Smith back and might still get an interception. So it might be worth trying. All right, the thing that we are the most curious about, Judd Zulgad.
Football distribution by the Vikings offense.
Football.
Dalvin Cook did not sign that contract to have 2 targets and 1 catch for -2 yards. Irv Smith Jr., this just in to us at Score North, might be good at football. Maybe he should get the ball. This whole, and I mean, I'm sure it starts with Kubes and then goes to Kirk. Thielen, God bless him, he should play a key role. But to me, Courtney, distribution of the football. Like, get these guys, you've got guys to involve. Yeah. Get them involved on plays where they should be. On 4th and 3, let's not try a deep shot next time, okay? Seriously.
No, I'm with you. I think that along those lines, Judd, I'm curious about, is it a good thing if Adam Thielen is constantly getting having 6 catches for 110 yards and 2 touchdowns? Maybe, maybe not. Like, think about what happened in the 2018 season when he reached that historic mark of 8 straight games to start the season with 100 yards receiving. That's great and everything, but who else is there? Like, my fear would kind of be that Kirk is relying on him so heavily that the offense continues to make itself completely one-dimensional. And I'm curious, how are they going to try to switch that up this week? Because you have a lot of different guys that you can get the ball to, but can you have Kirk trust that he can get the ball there and not worry about all the other stuff that he worries about when he's under pressure? Dalvin Cook needs to be more involved in the game plan. Alexander Mattison had 4 catches last week. I think they really are going to try to use him in that, receiving role. And maybe they'll start lining him up in the slot, catching more passes out of the backfield. I've told people this in fantasy. I would drop Irv Smith this week just because he's so far down the list of like priorities. I think right now, just early on, that do you expect him to get more than 2-3 targets? No, I don't. Not now, because Kirk's still trying to figure this out. And I think it's going to take a while for him to be able to trust people more than Adam Thielen. And that's why we knew this, though. We knew an uptick in targets would go Thielen's way this whole time. So it's not surprising. It's just kind of like, yikes, like, get ready.
Yeah, this might be the year that Thielen sets career highs, and if he stays healthy, in targets, catches. Like, he had the one ridiculous year that you mentioned. Before I get to the thing that I'm the most curious about, a quick shout out. We are giving away a Corona Hard Seltzer Ultimate Home Tailgate Party. That's right.
Football.
It includes a 65-inch TCL TV with a soundbar, $200 worth of Grundhofer's meats, $100 to MGM Wine and Spirits for you to, I don't know, maybe purchase some Corona Hard Seltzer. And you can enter very easily. If you already have the Score North app, you can just open it on your phone. Make sure you're registered with your name and email, and then click on the listener rewards link, and boom, you are entered. If you don't have the app, it's free to download in the Apple and Google Play stores. The Corona Hard Seltzer Ultimate Home Tailgate Party.
Football.
And if I don't have, I've got the 40-something inch TCL TV at home. If I had the 65-inch TCL TV, it would connect very well with my curiosity of a 6'5", 310-pound behemoth out of Oklahoma.
Yes,
a 4th-round draft pick that only has 31 career NFL snaps. We're going to get, it sounds like, and Courtney can elaborate on this, our first real look over the next few weeks at Drew Samia at right guard with Pat Elflein on the injured reserve list for at least a few weeks. And I would say, not to keep shoveling dirt on Pat Elflein, but it can't get a whole lot worse than the way he has played the last couple of years. And injuries have played a role in that. And so it's time to see what Drew Samia can do potentially. Courtney, where does that stand?
Yeah, I mean, that's the most underrated curiosity, which should probably be our number one curiosity. They've got 2 big injuries right now. I mean, if Dantzler doesn't play, are you going to put Gladney out there? Because you sure as hell didn't seem too confident last week in keeping him limited to 9 snaps on defense. It's your first-round pick after all. Samia is such an interesting one to me because all the talk last year of like red shirt year, he's going to be great, blah, blah, blah. We love what we're seeing. And then he doesn't win the right guard battle because you move Pat Elflein over. I think that was their last ditch effort with Elflein. And now it's really like, okay, we're moving on. He's never been the same since he was injured during his rookie season. And he's not a guard, he's a center, but we can play draft revisionist history another day. I think Samia right guard and how they're able to, does it look any better? Because you anticipate that Samia is going to be the starter there from here on out because Ezra Cleveland, mind you, was inactive in week 1. That's a bad sign for your 2nd-round draft pick that either you stunted his development or you're screwing up his growth because you made him play left guard instead of the position you drafted him for. So, because Brian O'Neill, I know that he was skinny mini when he first got here. He was active all those games, and he played in week 2. He got his ass handed to him in week 2 of that 2018 season, but he still played. So to me, that's a bad sign that Ezra Cleveland was not dressed. At least they let Brian O'Neill dress. I mean, that to me is, talking about like development, and there's so many similarities that the Vikings like to pull from Ezra Cleveland to Brian O'Neill. If he's not active this week, I think there's something that we should really be talking about there.
Yeah, my curiosity lines up right in the offensive line. Just curious if Drew Samia is able to go or if Ezra Cleveland's good to go. As Courtney brought up, like we had heard so much about him last year, and that it's a red shirt year, and he's gonna be ready to go and be part of the line in 2020. And if this is it, let's see if he can go. But in general, Pat Elflein allowed like 7 pressures last week against the Packers, so I don't think it can get worse, but is he ready to step in and be a drastic improvement? I guess we'll have to wait and see. Yeah,
the number on Elflein, so the Vikings allowed, according to Pro Football Focus, the Vikings allowed 7 pressures, and really so the Vikings and the Packers allowed the same number of pressures, but the Packers had way more dropbacks, and like Courtney said, 5 of them belonged to Pat Elflein. So
not good.
It's been a rough couple of years.
So those are confidences, curiosities, concerns for the Vikings going into this game, week 2 against the Colts. And that is a wrap on this episode of Purple Daily. We appreciate everyone subscribing to youtube.com/Purple Daily Podcast. And also you can find us in audio form and leave us a positive rating and a review on Apple, Spotify, and scorenorth.com or the other places you can find it. For Courtney Cronin, Phil Mackey, Judd Zulgad, Declan Goff, we will see you next time.